Thanks, George. Can you hear me okay? Sorry, I don't know
Yes.
what's going on with my video. I look like a alien. But hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Rhea Singhla. As George mentioned, I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of Futurize. We are an innovation studio slash consultancy that helps train young adults into entrepreneurs and build impact-driven startups. We aim to be the bridge between universities, corporates, governments, NGOs to really create a cohesive ecosystem where we can further tech, but also tech for good. Our big focus is in Africa. We are a global organization headquartered in the UK, but Africa being the youngest continent in the world, we do a lot of our programs across the continent. We've uptrained over, just on the continent alone, about 3,000, 4,000 students in the past 2 years, really kind of equipping them with the creative skills, problem solving skills, giving them the entrepreneurial toolkit that they may need to build their own startup, but also apply to any job industry as well. So I think those hands-on tools is extremely crucial. But yeah, happy to answer more questions about Futurize. I was asked today to talk a little bit more about what investors are looking for. Um, so just a little bit about my experience before starting Futurize. I worked for several Fortune 500 companies in the tech sector, working in investor relations, business development, also helping startups and entrepreneurs grow. I also worked as an investor, working at a hedge fund and at a VC, working in mostly media tech. So looking for very early stage startups to invest in. And yeah, so wear several hats. Investor is one hat, but then also the co-founder of Futurize is my more recent development. So as I mentioned, today I'm going to be discussing a little bit more about how women entrepreneurs in Africa can secure investor meetings. So we'll look at the current statistics, then to talk about a little bit of the challenges and stigmas, some practical strategies, understanding what investors are looking for, figuring out what kind of investors there are as well, and then talking about some resources and organization support in Africa. So if we look at the current landscape, the funding gap, we see across the world that women-led startups receive significantly less funding globally. There was a research done by the Boston Consulting Group that found that women-founded startups generate more revenue per dollar invested, yet they receive less funding, which just seems absolutely absurd, right? So we're kind of focused on like, why is that, or what is the current stigma around that? Women represent 42% of the global entrepreneurial population, but only get 2% of venture funding. When we look at Africa, actually, Africa has the highest number of women entrepreneurs in the world, yet women-led startups receive less than 5% of the total venture capital in Africa. Yet women make up 58% of Africa's self-employed population. And women-owned businesses in Africa face a 42 billion finance gap. Again, we'll look into that in just a minute, but the World Bank data indicates that women entrepreneurs are likely to be denied loans than their male counterparts. So, what are some barriers to funding women? Why is that? Why are we seeing this current gap? And again, this is just research that has been done. It's not a reflection of my biases or my norms or anything like that, but this is just the general standard of what's being said is first is around the culture and social barriers. So gender biases, investors feel unconscious biases affecting their funding decision. Traditional gender roles discourage women from pursuing entrepreneurship, and social expectations often limit women's perceived capabilities in high growth sectors. So when we look at things like, gender biases, of course, um, traditionally, uh, many may feel that a woman's role is to be at home, to care for a family, and they may not have time or the capabilities to juggle a family and starting up a business. Starting a business is like having a baby. So, just adding one more is a very difficult thing. But also, I think that there is in a what is it? Growing up, it's said that women might be given dolls to play with, so they're played house, but maybe boys are given building blocks or things that can actually make them feel a little bit more innovative. So that kind of, mindset is enabled from an early start as well. Then we look at the representation. So there's a lack of women in decision-making roles in investment firms or in any kind of C-suite capabilities. The glass ceiling is clearly very evident. Female investors are more likely to invest in women-led businesses, yet they're underrepresented in the investment community. We then look at structural barriers. So if we look at networks and mentorship, there's limited access to a high value of networks and mentors. There's fewer opportunities in business education and training. And oftentimes, again, women are excluded from these informal networks where many investment deals are made. They say it's a boys' club. Um, Again, going back to, we don't see as many women in leadership positions. If you look at a lot of the Fortune 100 companies, yeah, we kind of see that lack of networks and mentorship around that. Next, we can look at the economic barriers. So women often start businesses with smaller amounts of initial capital. There's a higher interest rate and less favorable loan terms, and difficulty in providing collateral for loans. Again, these are just some of the potential barriers for funding women. That doesn't mean that it's necessarily, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Uh, it's true in a sense of, we see it across the board, but these shouldn't be what deteriorates women entrepreneurs from getting investment, or women to be in leadership positions as well as become investors. So now we'll explore some of the practical strategies to secure investor meetings. First is networking and relationship building. So attending events, industry events, workshops, seminars. A few that come to mind are Women in Tech Africa, Africa Women Innovation Entrepreneurship Forum, as well as participating in pitch events and demo days. The next is to leverage social media, so using platforms like LinkedIn to connect with potential investors, Twitter and other social media for engaging with thought leadership and investors. If you have a startup as well, or some kind of tech product or something like that, or even a product, also showcasing it through social media, so you're getting the awareness out there about what you're currently doing, what your ambition, what your passion is, starting to kind of build that buzz. The third thing is to join entrepreneurship groups. Obviously, Startup Grind is a really great one to be a part of. So looking for those local but also international women entrepreneurship networks. I think peer-to-peer learning is a really great way to not only broaden your horizon, but also understand what's going on in your neighboring countries and across the globe, to kind of enhance that idea sharing and really kind of closing the gap across borders. So an example of one as well is the Women's Entrepreneurship and Innovation Association Africa. You can also look at some more professional organizations and chambers of commerce. The next thing on how to secure investor meetings is to obviously have an amazing pitch. Your elevator pitch, you need your compelling pitch. There's various types of pitches. Of course, you need to um, tailor those to which investors you have, but also who is your audience. So for crafting a compelling pitch, we want to focus on problem solving, market opportunity, and your unique value proposition. So what is your magic sauce? What makes you unique? And I think the problem solving aspect of it is a really important part that a lot of founders get lost in. So we always say fall in love with the problem and not the solution. So what exactly are you trying to solve? Who are you trying to solve it for, and why? Why does it matter? It's important to keep your pitch concise and engaging. We often recommend using the storytelling method to make it more memorable. It also helps people relate to it better. When we are highlighting the unique value, we want to talk about what sets your business apart. So showcase any proprietary technology, patents, unique methodologies. Also understand what your competitors are. Typically, if you have a good idea, someone else has also had that good idea. So oftentimes we never want to see that there's absolutely no competitors in the industry, because I guarantee there is at least a few. You never want to bash your competitors either. You just want to talk about what makes you unique. How are you better? How are you doing it better? But do not bash them. And lastly is to practice. Practice makes perfect. So get a lot of feedback from your peers, from mentors, participate in pitch competitions and workshops. I think it's really, really important to practice. That can kind of make or break your investor meeting or kind of your initial introduction. And that could really set you apart from if there's 5 teams that are pitching. One may have a fantastic pitch. However, their product or their startup might not be, as advanced or as great as another one, but it's the pitch. That pitch might just get them that first initial funding that they need. And then the last thing I would say is to prepare for the question and answer sessions. So anticipate those tough questions. Investors look at an average of 10 decks a day. They know the tough questions. Chances are, if they are an industry expert or they've worked in the field, they also know, things about it. So rather than say kind of BSing your way through it, understand it and practice. Definitely in the funding aspect as well. Understand your business model. Understand, how you are going to make money. You need to understand the dilution, your cap table, how many years is it going to take you to make profitable. If an investor, is going to give you money, I want to know when I'm going to get my money back. And that's extremely crucial for you to be able to explain as easy as possible. And also understand that it makes sense. If you say, for example, that you're going to be selling a product at the equivalent of $1, and you're only going to be selling 10 of these things, and you tell me in year 1, we are going to make $500 million, the math isn't mathing there. So we really need to think about, how it makes sense and make sure the numbers make sense as well. Also, then let's talk about a little bit more about the strategy. Sorry, I have a little bit of a cold, so you'll hear my voice going in and out. We talk about understanding investors. Research is extremely, extremely important. So investigate potential investors, their interests, what they've invested in, how much they've invested, what they looked like as well. What did the check size look like? How much equity did they take? What are they looking for as well? All of that information is typically very visible. And you can use platforms like Crunchbase to do so. Typically, most investors have a portfolio that you should be able to go through, typically on their website as well. If it's something very industry specific, for example, if you're looking at clean tech, there are investors that are looking specifically at clean tech or health tech or just deep tech in general. There might be impact investors that are looking for specific that. So look and see what they're investing in, also what stage that you're in. We'll talk about that in a second as well. So there's some investors that only invest in pre-seed or seed. There's others that only invest in from Series B and beyond. So you got to figure out what exactly they're looking for. As I mentioned earlier, tailoring your pitch is extremely, extremely crucial. So you want to align your pitch with the investor's criteria, their focus area. You need to be able to customize your presentation for different investors. Typically, they are all looking for the same thing to a certain extent. It's just how you deliver it. Next, we look at the market knowledge. So demonstrating your deep understanding of your market, your scalability, how much impact are you going to make? What is the viability of it? What is your market size? The market size is extremely crucial when you're going to be doing your evaluations as well. So you want to be able to provide your market trends, your competitor analysis, your growth potential, and you should be using data and analytics to support your claim. And lastly, it's very, very important to time your approach. So if you're looking for early stage funding, you want to focus on angel investors and seed funding, and maybe even use crowdfunding platforms like Kickstarter or GoFundMe. Family and Friends is also a really good one. But you want to make sure you understand what stage you're at and what your ask is. Very, very crucial. The other ones, if you're more growth stage, then you're going to be wanting to target more venture capital funds and large investment groups and looking to kind of seek more strategic partnerships and alliances that can kind of get you to the next level of where you need to be. So even something like that might be joining Y Combinator. Now I'd like to quickly I'm not sure how familiar we are with the different types of investors, but just go through a really quick breakdown of that. So first we have the angel investors. Those are high network individuals who provide capital for startups. This is typically very early stage investment. They're a little bit more flexible, willing to take the risk. There's a strong possibility they may not be getting their money back. And what they're really looking for is those strong personal connections, and they believe in the entrepreneur. So having that team is extremely important. It's almost like a marriage to a certain extent, where you're trusting someone with your money, your funds. So it's important for them to be able to believe in that person. Next, we have venture capitalists, which are firms or individuals that invest in startups and small businesses with high growth potential. Again, they're looking for high growth potential, for scalability. They usually require equity in exchange for capital, and they're involved in a lot of the stages. So involved in the strategic decision making. They may bring a team on board as well to kind of support your process, but they're typically a little bit more hands-on, I would say. We then also see impact investors. So these are investors that are looking for both financial returns and also social environmental impact. So they want to invest in businesses that address social challenges. They want to be able to see what they're putting in is actually going to make an impact. They emphasize sustainability, ethical business practices. We see a lot of this might be hidden behind ESG. That's a whole nother topic of conversation. But you might, know companies like Acumen or Leapfrog Investments. Those are some type of impact investors that we look at. Impact investors can also be maybe women-led that are looking to, kind of bridge that gap and might be more specific to that as well. And I would say lastly, we have the corporate investors. So large corporates that invest in startups, either to gain new technology, products, early market access. It's typically strategic investments that are aligned with their corporate goals, and they can provide significant resources beyond just capital. So to give you an example as well, it might be like a pharmaceutical company that has kind of a lot of the technology that you might need, which can be very expensive. Another example are, corporate venture capital arms like Google Ventures or Intel Capital. Um, Other things I would say beyond the investors is you can look at always grants. Grants are a really great way to kind of get that initial funding in. Okay, so next let's talk a little bit more. I know I've mentioned a lot of these things. I just want to reiterate some of them, which is kind of really key on, well, what are investors looking for? So some of the key criteria. One is a strong management team, so competent, experienced team members. They know their roles, their responsibilities, often have a proven track record of execution. Again, that might be something more what like a VC is looking for rather than an angel. Um, we, for example, in our startups, we work with university students who oftentimes don't have the experience, but we like to provide them the experience through our own programs. So it might be that you're also, maybe if you don't have the work experience, that you go through an incubator or an accelerator and are able to kind of build that track record that way that gives you the credibility. Next is the market opportunity. So clearly identifying your target customer, your market strategy, how you're going to go to market, and understanding, the large and growing market with a clear demand. We often say you can use a TAM-SAM-SOM model for that. It's a really good depiction of just how to understand where the market is at. Next is the scalability. Again, very crucial for VCs especially, but all investors, right? They want to see your path to success. How are you going to scale your operations? How are you going to increase your market share? How are you going to even get that market share? So we want to see the potential for significant growth and expansion. The next thing is your clear business model, so well-defined revenue streams and profitability potential, transparent financial projections and milestones. Again, going back to the financials, this is a lot of times when I've seen decks, this is where people oftentimes mess up, is in their financials. A lot of investors will actually tell you how they want the financials to be seen, um, and that's I would say 9 out of 10 times this is where I see uh, startups not being able to take it to the next level with the investors, is where they mess up their business model. And then the last part is the innovation. So again, your magic sauce. So what sets you apart, your unique solution, your competitive advantage. If you have any IP or patents or proprietary technology, that's always a good one to see. Okay, so next I just wanted to share some resources, so funding and support, some organizations that are doing some really great work that you can kind of tap into. So the first one that I had, it was the Africa Development Bank. So they have initiatives like affirmative finance action for women in Africa. They provide capacity building, mentorship, and access to finance. The next one is She Leads Africa, which has educational resources, network opportunities, funding competitions, and it's also a strong community of ambitious African women. We have then also the Women Investment Portfolio Holdings. It's investment in female-led enterprises, focusing on empowering African women through economic participation. A few others are the Global Women's Leadership Network, so which provides mentorship and network opportunities. Again, a really great community, which can be your strong, having a strong network is extremely crucial. You want those champions in your corner. Another one is the Lioness of Africa, that's showcasing successful African women entrepreneurs and actually connecting them with investors. And then the last one is more enterprise development programs like the African Women Entrepreneurship Program and the Tony Ilumu Foundation. Also, the Futurize program as well. Okay, and then some more resources for any of our young women that are out here as well. We have the Kenya Women Finance Trust, which provides financial services, empowers young women through microfinancing. We have Akira Chicks, also very similar. iHub Nairobi, Growth Africa, and the Uwizu Fund, which is a government initiative that provides youth and women access to grants and interest-free loans. And again, encourages entrepreneurship and job creation among young women. So yeah, those are a few of the things. Just to kind of sum up a lot of this, what we discussed is some of the key lessons that we can also understand from other startups that have done it. For example, we see M-Pesa. M-Pesa was actually co-founded by a woman. And some of the key takeaways, as I mentioned, is the importance of a strong value proposition and a clear market need, the effective use of networks and mentors, persistent and tailored approach to securing investment, and leveraging media and public relationships to build credibility. Some of the things that really stood M-Pesa apart, clearly a very big thing. So just in summary, we've looked at some of the current landscapes and challenges. We've discussed some practical strategies and resources. And I hope that this was really helpful. I know it was a quick overview. I'm happy to answer any questions that I'm able to. But just to kind of give you an overview on what's going on, what are some resources out there, what you can do, and how to kind of build your network as well. So yeah, I hope that helps, and happy to answer any questions.